What's going on, guys? So I recently did a video on power converters for RVs and what their intended purpose is. Really, these are just kind of glorified battery chargers for the house battery in your RV. But we're going to talk about these. We're going to talk about an upgrade we recently did to a different brand of one of these. And then we're going to talk about the very best of the best and why you should consider the one we're going to feature today. Hang tight. I'll be right back. So first of all, if you saw the video I did on power converters, you'll know that I recently removed this one from our 2021 Coachman Brookstone fifth wheel, and we swapped it with a Furrion 80 amp solar charge controller. Now, something that I kind of regret doing is jumping from this WFCO 55 amp power converter to the Furrion 80 amp power converter that's now inside of the RV. And the reason for that is I'm gonna likely have to swap the breaker out because our fifth wheel was never intended to have an 80 amp power converter in it. It took up a lot more space, but it wasn't necessarily a lot more negative space. It was just the fact that it was very difficult to fit in where I had to put it. And there are some other options, and this video is to kind of show you one of those options. So you see this power converter right here, then you see this power converter right here. If you look at the part numbers, you'll see that this is the WF9855, and this is also the WF9855. Now, I made a video on this talking about the fact that there are a lot of knockoff brands out there, brands that have no brand name to them. There's literally no marking on here that shows who manufactures this. It just carries the same model number as the genuine WFCO. Now, the difference here is that this one's about $199 to $250. This one's about $79. It's not an exact duplicate, but it is definitely close enough that if you're shopping on Amazon or if you're shopping at some of these other places, you might see this one and go, hey, it's the exact same one. I'm going to save a boatload of money. Let me just get this one. Especially if you're upgrading your house batteries to lithium iron phosphate batteries, you might need to change from a controller that doesn't support lithium chemistry to one that does. So when you start searching for them, you're going to see, hey, look at this alternative. It's a lot less expensive than I thought it was going to be, thinking that it's the same as this one. Now, from an overall looks perspective, they look similar, but there are a lot of differences. Now, even though this is a pretty good clone of the WFCO, it's not exact, and there are obvious ways you can tell. So let me show you. First of all, you see these openings are much larger than the openings here. You see that the way the fuses are configured, this is actually resting much higher, and this is much lower in the chassis. The stickers look similar, but they're not the same. Moving to the side, you'll see the same thing. The vent openings here are a lot larger than the vent openings right here. You can see that the actual sticker on the WFCO is on the same side as the terminal, whereas it's reversed here, and there is no WFCO marking on here at all. When we get to the vent or the fan side, this side looks very, very similar. The screws are definitely a little larger versus these, but these fit the holes of the actual grill a little bit better. The cord is thicker on the WFCO, so that's a big one to think about. The cord is a bit thicker. It's not significantly thicker, but it definitely seems as if it's at least a gauge or two thicker than the knockoff brand right here. On the bottom, again, very, very similar. This one has some threaded holes. This one doesn't. You can see the ground right here versus this one is a block, which means that the way they ground, even though they look very similar, this one, okay, so this one just has this piece on the outside, not going in, whereas that one goes through right there. But yeah, again, very, very similar overall, but they are not the same, and the WFCO is the genuine brand, and this is the one that you see all over Amazon. But today's video isn't really even to talk about these. It's what is considered a better upgrade, especially if you need to be able to support lithium chemistry. Okay, so part of the reason I'm doing this video is because I know that there are some folks who will never buy a Furrion product. There are some folks who absolutely detest the brand and they just won't buy it. Even if it's a great product, they're choosing not to buy it, which is totally understandable. So This is a brand that is a highly respected, extremely well-built, feature-rich product that's not going to cost a heck of a lot more than a WFCO. It's going to be significantly more expensive than a knockoff brand, but this is absolutely one that you should look at. Progressive Dynamics Inc. makes phenomenal power products for the RV industry. They make all sorts of really, really solid, high-quality, feature-rich products at affordable prices whenever you consider what they compare against. Now, this is the IntelliPower 9300. This is the model PD 9360. And this specific one is a 60 amp power converter. Now this is going to utilize a standard 15 amp plug versus the 20 amp plug that the Furrion had because it was an 80 amp charger. On the end down here, you'll see that it has 2 terminal blocks for positive and 2 for negative. And the reason why you have this is because you're going to have power going out to your battery, and then you're going to have power going to your main power control panel to power 12-volt accessories inside of your RV. In most cases, if you're simply upgrading this, you're only going to use 1 power and 1 negative connection here because you're already going to have a terminal block that connects to the power station in your RV. So you won't need 2 of these. Now, if you're building out an RV or you're completely redoing the electrical, then you might utilize these because they'll simply act as kind of a block so you can have power going in from your battery and then power going out to your 12-volt section of your control box. Same with your ground as well. You have 3 25 amp blade fuses in here also, and then you have your cooling fan over here. You have this cool little remote with a QR code on it, which is going to give you the ability to connect to this so you can actually monitor it remotely utilizing the plug right there. And on the side, you see the little pin? Well, that smaller hole actually allows you to change the chemistry. So you have your color indications right there to let you know specifically what type of battery chemistry you're going to be charging, which is really nice versus one that's designed to auto detect and then you're never sure if it's actually auto detecting, because when it's set for lithium iron phosphate, it's going to be charging over 14 volts versus a little over 13 volts. And that's going to be important to be able to properly maintain your batteries. And that's another reason why I'm actually moving to this one, is because when you look at the Furrion unit, there's no clear indication that it has switched over to lithium iron phosphate and that it's not just still trying to charge it under lead acid or AGM chemistry. So that is really cool. Plus, this thing is loaded with safety features built into it. If we look at this section of the instructions, you can see that you can select your charging profile. Again, that's going to be to determine the type of battery that you're charging. We'll specifically have it set for blue, which is going to be lithium. And then it has GFCI built into it, so it has ground fault protection built into it. So the IntelliPower converters have the lowest ground fault leakage. The user can confidently utilize the RV's AC outlets without concern of ground fault interruption of the facility's power source. That is also really nice, and that's a great feature to have. Plus, reverse battery protection. So it prevents damage if the battery leads are cross-connected. Since the only consequence of cross-connection is a blown fuse, damage to or possible replacement of the converter is avoided. Cross-connection of the battery leads is the only thing that will blow these fuses. Replacement fuses are available at any automotive store. Again, because they're standard blade fuses, 25 amp. So again, very, very cool. We will be putting this in the RV. We will make a video on it where we swap out the Furrion unit with this one. Again, I like the fact that I don't have to change the breaker out in the RV to a larger breaker size because this is supported through a 15 amp standard plug versus the 20 amp plug that the Furrion required. And if you don't know what that looks like, it's basically the same thing, except this pin right here is flat and it's horizontal instead of vertical. And the plug, fortunately, behind the panel supports either of them. It's really the breaker that would need to be upgraded to a 20 amp breaker or a 15 amp breaker to be able to support that. Okay, so again, everyone, if you hear weird noises in the background, it's my rodent repelling stuff that I have in here. Real quickly, I'm going to change the chemistry here by using this little key, basically changing it to blue for lithium iron phosphate batteries. Really nice that they give you user selectable, and the light is right here, and that's the little pinhole, so I'm going to press it to see what happens. It's white. Okay, there we go. Now it's blue. You have to hold it down for a little while for it to change, but now the light in there is blue, and we are charging at the right type of chemistry for the battery we have. And you know what? I'm going to keep this little poker on here. If for some reason I need access to it, I don't want to have to be hunting for it, so I'll probably actually just mount this to the top. That way it's readily available in case I need to see it. Okay, we're gonna unplug it from the wall. I have the panel already unscrewed right here, so now I just need to remove the panel and get back there. Something I have not done a good job of, and I probably need to do it really quickly, is to vacuum this area out because there's some sawdust back there. So let me go grab a vacuum and clean that out. All right, so I took the screw out, I unplugged it. Just need to shimmy the new old power converter out. There we go. I'm gonna get back here real quick and just vacuum all that out. Okay, so I need to just disconnect everything from the old one and put it on the new one. Got my ground connected. Next, I'm going to move the power over so that one's already inserted into a slot. That way it's not just hanging loose and ready to make contact to things it shouldn't. I put a big old thick piece of Gorilla Tape right here too, just so it doesn't touch the chassis whenever I'm loosening it. All right, so that is going to be my hot power connection. That one's going to go directly into here, so it spends as little time out as possible. Now, this is spaced off here a lot more than this one is, so I was able to just keep from touching the chassis of this by just not leaning it in towards the chassis of it. Now we're going to take our ground connection off. All right. Okay, now that one's in. Nice and tight. Those are not coming out. You can see positive, negative, and then the ground's on the other side. This is not just shorter, but the entire profile of it is smaller, as you can tell from the Furrion unit. So it should fit back there no problem at all. And we should be pretty much set. As soon as I get this through here, I'm going to plug it in. Yeah, that fits in here really, really well. And I should be able to reach my arm up in here and plug it in too. Okay, so I had forgot to plug in the little Charging Wizard pendant. So I'm going to plug that in. Okay, so when you scan the QR code, it simply takes you to your instructions to tell you what to do in terms of pressing this button. And depending on how you press this button, it will change the action of the charger. So I want to put it in charge mode, so I'm simply going to press it once. And it says it will be a long flash followed by a short wink, which is exactly what just happened here. So now it's in charge mode, and the pendant, I could probably fit it somewhere in this area. So let's see what we can do. We're going to try to get all this mounted, put it back together, and then we'll figure out where we want to place the pendant. Okay, so we have it all covered back up, and I'm going to show you where I plan on running the pendant because I have access to areas back there, and I want to see if I can reach back there and have it accessible from under my battery compartment, or sorry, under my storage compartment in the basement area next to the batteries. Well, I put myself in a little bit of a bind here because the dongle is on the other side of that wall, so I have to remove all this stuff to remove that wall to get to the dongle, which I actually plan on mounting right here so I have quick access to it so I can quickly make any changes to the charging algorithm for the battery up front if I need to make those changes. But everything is working really well. I'm super happy that I now have a system that is capable of safely charging lithium, and I know it is because I was able to actually set it for charging lithium, and that means a lot to me versus one that just says automatic. I've heard a lot of folks that have told me some of the auto switching or the auto sensing charging systems don't work efficiently, and then whenever they test them with a multimeter, they see that they're still putting out like 13.6 volts, and we want to get over 14 so we can adequately keep a lithium iron phosphate battery maintained. That said, I just wanted to give you this quick video showing you that we swapped out the Furrion, the 80 amp Furrion, with a 60 amp progressive dynamic power converter that is now going to work with the breakers we currently have. I don't have to worry about swapping breakers out or anything, and we should be maintaining the house battery, or actually the front battery, just fine. We have two batteries back here and we have a separate one right here, and it's all independent from each other, which is really cool because if, let's say, we keep the refrigerator running or we keep an AC running and it drains these batteries completely dead, the battery up front is independent from these batteries. So that battery will still maintain its full charge. It has its own solar panel going to it, and it is being charged by the house charger. So everything now is set up in a way of really good redundancy, which is what I was looking for. Anyways, guys, this is probably one of the very best converters you can put inside of your RV. It really is. They make phenomenal products and they get really, really good reviews. My channel sponsor, eTrailer.com, carries them. Again, super, super good product. Check them out. I'll put a link in the description of the video if you're interested. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.